She used to believe that silence was peaceful, that quiet meant safety, that if someone wasn't hurting you, they cared. She was wrong. Because silence can be louder than words, and abandonment doesn't always come with goodbye. Sometimes it just stops answering. She remembers the exact moment everything began to fall apart. Not because something dramatic happened, but because nothing did. No fight, no argument, no warning, just distance. When they first met, it didn't feel special, and that's why it felt real. He wasn't trying too hard. He didn't pretend to be perfect. He just stayed. He listened. He asked questions no one else cared to ask. He remembered small details. And when you've spent your whole life feeling invisible, being noticed feels like love. She told herself to be careful. She promised herself not to get attached. She had been hurt before. But attachment doesn't ask for permission. It happens quietly. One late conversation turned into many. One laugh turned into comfort. One message turned into a habit, and soon he became part of her routine. She started waking up with expectation, checking her phone before even opening her eyes, waiting for his name to appear. And most days, it did. Good morning messages, inside jokes, promises whispered through screens. He told her she was different, that she wasn't like the others, that he felt calm with her. She believed him, because when someone sounds honest, you don't expect deception. She opened parts of herself she had kept locked for years. Her fears of being replaced, her fear of being too much, her fear of being left without explanation. He said he would never do that to her. And for a while, it felt true. Then the energy shifted, not suddenly, not clearly, just less. Replies took longer. Conversations felt forced. Affection felt scheduled. She told herself he was busy. She made excuses for him before he ever asked. She adjusted her expectations, lowered her needs, silenced her worries because she didn't want to lose him. That's how it starts. You don't notice when love turns into fear. But it always does. She stopped asking questions, stopped expressing feelings, stopped being herself because she learned that honesty made him distant, and distance terrified her. The night he disappeared didn't feel special either. No signs, no final words, just absence. She waited. Minutes passed, then hours. Her mind raced through every possible explanation. An emergency, a mistake, a misunderstanding. She refreshed her messages again and again. Nothing. At 11:47 p.m., she realized something that broke her in a way she didn't know was possible. He was online, active, choosing not to answer. That's when hope died quietly. She didn't sleep that night. She stared at the ceiling, replaying every memory, every smile, every promise, every time he said, "I'm here." And suddenly those words meant nothing. Days passed. She wanted closure. She wanted honesty. She wanted one message explaining why. But silence doesn't explain, it just punishes. She blamed herself. Maybe she asked for too much. Maybe she loved wrong. Maybe she wasn't enough. That's the cruel part of abandonment. It makes you question your worth instead of their character. Weeks later, the truth surfaced. Not through words, not through apology. Through a picture. He was smiling, happy, with someone else, living the life he said he wasn't ready for. And in that moment, she understood everything. He didn't disappear because he was lost. He disappeared because he was done. She cried, not because she missed him, but because she missed who she was before she trusted him. Healing didn't come fast. Some nights she still checked her phone, still hoped for an impossible message. But slowly, the pain changed. It became understanding. She realized that some people don't come into your life to stay. They come to consume. They take your attention, your affection, your emotional labor. And when they're full, they leave. She learned that love doesn't confuse you. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't make you beg for presents. And if someone leaves without explanation, that explanation is already enough. Now she doesn't wait. She doesn't chase. She doesn't silence herself to keep someone comfortable. Because she learned the hardest truth of all. Being alone hurts less than being abandoned by someone who promised to stay. And if you're listening to this right now, if someone vanished from your life without a word, remember this: you are not hard to love. They were incapable of staying. Some people are lessons, not lifetimes. After everything ended, she thought the worst part was over. She thought the pain had peaked. That once the truth was revealed, the wound would finally close. She was wrong. Because endings don't end pain, they just change its shape. At first, the days felt unreal, like she was moving through someone else's life. She woke up exhausted, not from lack of sleep, but from carrying memories she never asked for. Every place reminded her of him. Songs, streets, random moments that meant nothing to anyone else. Her mind betrayed her constantly. One second she hated him. The next second she missed him. And that confusion was torture. People around her said the same things. Move on! You deserve better. He wasn't worth it. But no one tells you how to let go. No one tells you how to stop loving someone who already stopped choosing you. She blamed herself for still caring. She asked herself why she wasn't stronger, why she couldn't just erase him. But emotions don't disappear because you command them to. They fade only when they are understood. Nights were the hardest because during the day she could pretend, she could smile, work, scroll, stay busy. But at night, silence became dangerous. That's when memories attacked without warning. She replayed conversations in her head, wondered what she could have said differently, imagined alternate endings. What if she had noticed the signs earlier? What if she had pulled away first? What if she had protected herself? But hindsight is cruel. It gives you answers only after the damage is done. One night, she almost messaged him. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She wanted to ask why. She wanted to ask, was any of it real? She wanted to hear his voice one last time, but then she realized something terrifying. If she reached out, she would give him power again. And she was tired of bleeding for someone who never came back to stop it. So she didn't send the message, and that was the first quiet victory. Healing didn't look like progress. It looked like breakdowns in the shower, crying in public bathrooms, holding back tears in random moments. It looked ugly, messy, slow, but it was real. She started journaling, not because it made her feel better, but because she needed somewhere to put the pain. Pages filled with anger, confusion, grief. She wrote letters to him she would never send, and slowly the words changed. From "why did you leave?" to "why did I accept less?" That question scared her because it forced her to look inward. She realized how much she had compromised, how she had shrunk herself to fit into his comfort. She tolerated inconsistency. She excused disrespect. She ignored her intuition, not because she was weak, but because she wanted love to work. That's when the truth hit her the hardest. She didn't just lose him, she lost herself while trying to keep him. That realization hurt more than his absence. Weeks turned into months. The pain didn't disappear, but it softened. It became quieter, less sharp. She started sleeping again, eating normally, laughing without guilt. And one day, she noticed something strange. She hadn't thought about him all morning. At first, that scared her because pain had become familiar. But then she felt relief because for the first time, she was breathing without his shadow. She learned new routines, morning walks without checking her phone, music that wasn't connected to memories, evenings that belonged only to her. She rebuilt slowly, brick by brick. But healing isn't linear. Some days, she missed him again. Not the real him, but the version she thought existed. The illusion. And she finally understood something important. She wasn't grieving a person. She was grieving a future that never existed. That understanding changed everything. One evening, she saw him again. Not online, not in memories, in real life, across the street, laughing. For a moment, her heart froze. Old feelings rushed back instinctively. But then, nothing happened. No panic. No longing, just clarity. She saw him clearly for the first time. Not as someone she lost, but as someone who couldn't meet her where she was. And that was enough. She didn't hate him. She didn't forgive him either. She simply let him go. Later that night, she realized something profound. She survived the worst thing she thought would destroy her. And she was still standing, still breathing, still capable of love. That's when she stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What did this teach me?" It taught her boundaries. It taught her self-respect. It taught her that consistency is not a luxury. It's a requirement. She promised herself something that night. Never again would she chase effort. Never again would she beg for presents. Never again would she accept half love. Because love should feel safe. Not confusing. Not silent. Not painful. And if you're listening to this, if you're still waiting for someone who left without explanation, hear this carefully. You don't need closure from the person who hurt you. You create closure by choosing yourself. Some people don't leave scars. They leave lessons. And once you learn them, you outgrow the pain. After she let him go, she thought peace would arrive immediately. She imagined healing as a finish line. A moment when everything suddenly felt okay. But healing doesn't announce itself. It sneaks in quietly while you're not paying attention. At first, she felt empty. Not sad, not angry. Just hollow. As if her emotions had burned out from carrying too much for too long. She wondered if this was what moving on felt like, or if something inside her was permanently broken. She stopped talking about him, not because it didn't hurt anymore, but because she was tired of explaining pain to people who only listened halfway. She learned that not everyone deserves access to your healing process. Some people just want the summary. Others want drama. Very few want the truth. So she healed privately, quietly, without announcing growth. Without posting quotes, without proving strength. She just survived. Some days were easy. Other days, memories ambushed her without warning. A smell. A phrase. A random sound. And suddenly she was back in the past, wondering how someone could mean everything one day and nothing the next. She realized something important during those moments. She didn't miss him. She missed the version of herself that believed love would stay, that innocence was gone now. And that scared her, because once innocence leaves, you don't get it back. You only get wisdom. She started noticing patterns, not just in him, in herself. She saw how quickly she attached to potential instead of reality, how she filled silence with excuses, how she stayed longer than she should have because she hoped things would change. That awareness hurt. But it also freed her. She stopped romanticizing inconsistency. Stopped calling emotional absence space. Stopped calling neglect miscommunication. She finally called things by their real names. One night, she asked herself a question that changed everything. If someone treated my best friend the way he treated me, would I tell her to stay? The answer was immediate. No. That was the moment she forgave herself. Not him, herself, for staying, for hoping, for loving without protection. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant releasing the guilt of not knowing better at the time. As months passed, she noticed something else. She wasn't afraid of being alone anymore. Loneliness felt different now. It felt peaceful, predictable, safe. Unlike love that disappears without warning, she rebuilt trust, not in others, but in herself. She trusted that if something felt wrong, it probably was. She trusted that walking away wasn't failure. It was self-respect. Then something unexpected happened. Someone new entered her life. Not dramatically, not intensely, just calmly. No promises. No emotional fireworks. Just consistency. At first, she resisted it. Consistency felt unfamiliar. She was used to highs and lows, to anxiety, to emotional guessing games. Peace felt boring, and that realization terrified her. She almost sabotaged it, pulled away, questioned intentions, looked for red flags that didn't exist, because trauma teaches you to expect abandonment even when there is none. But this time, she paused. Instead of running, she observed. Instead of assuming, she communicated. And for the first time, she was met with clarity, not confusion. That's when she understood something powerful. Healthy love doesn't hurt loudly. It doesn't punish you with silence. It doesn't make you anxious. It doesn't disappear to teach lessons. It stays. She didn't fall in love immediately. And that was okay. She learned that love doesn't need to rush to be real. Sometimes the strongest relationships start quietly, without chaos, without fear, without desperation. She didn't tell this new person about her past right away, not because she was hiding it, but because she didn't want her scars to introduce her. She wanted to be seen as who she was becoming, not who she was hurt into being. One evening, alone with her thoughts, she reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the nights she couldn't breathe, the moments she begged for answers, the silence that almost destroyed her. And she realized something shocking. She was grateful, not for the pain, but for the clarity it forced upon her. Because without that heartbreak, she would have kept accepting less. She would have kept shrinking, kept doubting herself, kept believing love required suffering. Now she knew better. And knowledge changes everything. She no longer feared being left because she knew she could survive it. She had proof. And if you're listening to this right now, still holding on to someone who disappeared, still waiting for a message that won't come, let this be your reminder. You don't heal by getting answers from them. You heal by asking yourself better questions. You don't move on by forgetting. You move on by understanding. And you don't become strong by avoiding pain. You become strong by surviving it and choosing differently next time. Some people leave quietly because they were never meant to stay loudly. And that's okay, because the ones who are meant to stay will never make you beg for presents.